Michael sat rubbing his temples with his fingers. Everything about the tiny room made his entire body ache. The smell of lemon furniture polish that covered all of the furniture caused his stomach to churn. He stood to put some distance between the wooden table and his nostrils. As he walked over to the window for the third time in the last half hour, he was once again reminded of the gravity of the verdict he was waiting to hear. Although the news crews couldn't see him, he could see the trucks from every local news station and a few national ones parked on the street. Charlotte, North Carolina hadn't received this much attention since the Ray Carruth case. Something about high-profile murder cases seemed to draw the journalistic vultures to the city. Everyone knew the jury was back. Everyone was waiting to hear the verdict that would change his client's life forever. Just a year ago, he'd been in a similar situation, but strangely he felt nowhere near as confident as he did then. His previous client was a strong professional football player, not a fragile young girl with her whole life ahead of her. He rubbed his fingers through his thick dark hair, a nervous tic he'd picked up while working on this case. Michael turned to look at his client, Shamika, who, despite the seriousness of the charge she was facing, looked quite calm. Her dark skin was smooth and clear. Her hair was styled the same way each time he saw her, pulled into a tight ponytail. Her frame was thin, a fact that Michael attributed to the stress of the case. He worried about her. She should be out giggling about boys, not facing first-degree murder charges. Michael shook his head swiftly and began to speak to his client. "How are you feeling, Shamika?" She looked down at her feet before responding. "I'm nervous. I don't want to go to prison for the rest of my life. Who's going to take care of my baby if they lock me up?" "Don't worry about that right now. You have to think positively." Shamika's searching eyes shot up to meet Michael's stare. "I want to. But I read on the internet that long deliberations mean they'll find me guilty. It's been 10 days, she said in a tiny voice that clearly revealed her youth. Michael smiled. Even though Shamika was worried, knowing his teenage client took the time to research court proceedings proved to him that the last year of his life had meaning. The girl he met a year ago could barely read, and was too afraid to speak to anyone. Despite the outcome of the case, he knew her life was enriched because of his efforts. He imagined this to be how a father feels when he learns his child has accomplished a great feat. The almond-shaped eyes that stared back at him were not those of his flesh and blood, but he hoped to one day see the same trust in the eyes of his future children. "I'm happy to hear that you did your research, Shamika. But I assure you, the Internet does not know whether or not the jury believes us or the prosecutor." "What if the jury believes the prosecutor?" Michael walked to his client and squatted in front of her. Using his right index finger, he lifted her head so that she could look him in the eyes. "Shamika, I know you are scared, but the evidence in this case was clear. We presented a strong case. Let's try to trust the justice system to get this one right." A single tear rolled from Shamika's left eye and down her cheek as she nodded her head. "Trust me. No matter how this turns out, I will not stop until you are free to finish growing up and raising your baby. Besides, you promised me you were going to finish high school and go to college," Michael said with a smile. Though more tears now streamed down her face, Shamika returned the smile. Their moment was interrupted by a knock on the door. Michael stood before responding. "Come in." In walked Nadine, the red-haired social worker that helped Michael navigate the last year of the emotionally draining case. Without her help, relating to Shamika would have been impossible.
"Thank goodness I made it in time. Traffic was ridiculous. You know what they say about Charlotte traffic. If you want to make instant idiots, just add water. I declare you'd think those people never seen rain before.